You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
The World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Hello folks, this is Mr. Green. You are listening to the Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling Podcast, and this is the WOW Season 2 Episode 1 review. Now the first thing I have to say just on that alone is you may notice that I said Season 2, and yet in some of the previous reviews that are on our channel, there's already a Season 2 review available. Yeah, the first noticeable thing there is that Access TV does not recognize those previous seasons that WOW had, which, you know, quite frankly doesn't bother me in the least, just because I said then, it's like it's a little ridiculous to be addressing a season or trying to hold some sort of continuity to a season that took place over 15 years, well at the time, 15 years ago, because of the huge hiatus that they had there. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So as far as the continuity of Access TV is concerned, it is picking up with Season 1 last year, Season 2 now. Anything that took place outside of that, yes, it does connect to the history and the mythology of WOW, but as far as Access TV is concerned, that is not part of their season's lineup. So that's one of the real big first notable thing that I saw. I guess the full disclosure here, I did watch the episode that I'm reviewing now about a week ago, even though I'm releasing it today. I was fortunate to kind of get the chance to see a screener for it, but because of their rules, you cannot release any reviews for things that have not been publicly issued until the public has had a chance to see that as well. So, as it is, we are going to talk over the WOW episode that I got a chance to see now that the world has caught up to it. So, hopefully you've had a chance to sit down and watch that as well. For those that are you looking at it on Sling TV or something of that nature, maybe you would have a chance to look at it on VOD. If you have not looked at the episode yet, please be aware that there are spoilers. There's spoilers ahead that you may not want to hear in case you're looking for some sort of surprise. So you have been warned. In any case, let's get into it, folks. And remember, please leave your statements and comments below wherever you happen to be listening to this, so we can get our dialogue on about how good or bad that you felt like WOW was, or did you enjoy it and whatnot. I will start saying that I enjoyed most of this. This was a good episode. One thing that you cannot take away from WOW Superheroes is the production value that has been applied to the show since they've come back. One that has been one of the hallmarks that I've said since they have gotten into this incarnation of it. Particularly if you were a viewer of WOW, I know that there's several people now that have no idea what the first WOW episodes looked like. And if you don't, I'm sure that it is not what they want to be advertised, but I'll just say that you can go online and you can find basically every episode of the first incarnations of WoW there. And if you see those that take place in the Great Western Forum, and then you look at it now, we can address the obvious things that the technology's changed. There's probably a better production value just over the course of a decade or so that you can apply to any TV show for probably relatively half the cost that you would have done in 2000 and 2001. But that aside, I mean, it looks great. It looks great being in the Belasco Theater. I always felt like that was a little bit of a get from what some indie companies have done. Find a location that's small, that's intimate, that looks really good on camera, that you can utilize, for your production, and WoW did that. So that is one of the first things that I have to point to as far as the aesthetics of the look. One of the other things is the booth, two-man booth. I wasn't last season, and I'm not now a fan of a three-person booth. And lo and behold, it has been changed to a two-person booth. It is now simply David McLean and Stephen Dickey, which I love. I love that so much more than the three-person booth. And with all due respect to, I forget what her real name is. I think Eleanor, but if I'm saying it wrong, she used to be portrayed as Easy Rider on again, the first incarnations of WoW. Not that Easy did anything wrong in being a part of the three-person booth. It's just it felt like it was unnecessary. It was like, for what reason do we have this third person here? Easy Rider was there to basically be the heel announcer and provide, I guess, the funny remarks here or there. But it just felt like an unnecessary function, and more so than that, it felt like, hey, the WWE's doing it, so we all have to do it. And I just did not get that. It's like we don't need to kind of follow the trend here. You guys, you control your own universe. You can do what you want to do. And it seems as if that is kind of what they have pushed towards now. So we got a two-person booth. It is much more digestible. And having that. They have a new open for the show. Of course, Dave McLean is still always there and is still always doing his thing. Welcome to WoW. The whole spiel that he does. I mean, he's been doing that for years now. And as long as he's walking, talking, breathing, and has a voice, I'm pretty sure he's going to continue to do that. In fact, I think he did that ever since, Glow. So go figure. The show opens up with Tessa Blanchard being introduced by Dave McLean. Of course, Tessa being Tessa and being the WoW champion, talks herself up, as she is very good at doing. I don't think there's any doubt that Tessa Blanchard is a very accomplished young lady in and out of the ring, really, but of course, certainly inside the ring, she's very accomplished. Even if she does split her time between WoW and Impact as far as a national television wrestling platform is concerned, here she is the world's champion. She is bragging about the fact that she's the world champion, but in doing so, she has more or less invited, for lack of a better term, her opponents out there to the ring. Those being the Beast, who is now, how can we say it? I guess she's kind of positioned as maybe an anti-hero. That might be the best way to put that in, because she's not a heel, but she's not really drawing the ire of the fans. They like her, and she really isn't doing anything to for them not to enjoy who she is and why she's there. But she interrupts, and that is followed by Jungle Girl interrupting, and that is followed by Havoc. who is, I guess, now known as Havoc, the Monster of Madness. Havoc, when she comes in, first let's rewind us a little bit. When Jungle Girl and the Beast come out, of course that creates tensions, and Tessa Blanchard tries to excuse herself. When she walks away, she essentially walks into a brick wall known as Havoc. Havoc comes around and more or less walks her back towards the ring. So now we have all four in the ring. A three-way race for top contender. And Tessa is more or less saying, hey, you figure it out. You figure out who's the number one contender. That sets up a three-way elimination match for the main event. Man, that's something. Anyway. So there we go. We got this set up for a three-way elimination match for the main event. I definitely have to talk about that. I don't know if I agree with that in total, but let's go in order here. Don't want to get ahead of myself. So the second segment in the first match, Jesse Jones versus Fire. Anybody that's on this channel listening to this review will know Jesse Jones as Jesse Bell Smothers. If you're familiar with Fire, you know her as Kiera Hogan. Both of which are pretty accomplished. And if you're not aware who the ring announcer is is Shaul Guerrero, former developmental talent in WWE, and of course the daughter of the late Eddie Guerrero and Vicky Guerrero. Vicky's still alive; she's not late. But Jesse Jones clearly working heel here, and more or less using the Trump phrase, "I'm going to make wrestling great again." So, considering the location that she's at and that she's using that phrase. Probably, and the context of the crowd, probably not going to get her any cheers and not going to endear her to the audience. I'm sure somewhere across the country they're probably very fine with it, but let's understand, for the audience at large, she is using that to be a heel. And again, I know there's some fans out there like, what's she doing wrong? using the catchphrase, but that. They're doing that based on where she is and who she's talking to. So she is still leading this campaign that she started last season, that I'm going to make wrestling great again. And Jessie was then and is now a great promo. I saw that a couple of years ago when she was at a live show. I'm seeing it now. I certainly hope that they do not script anything for her. I think that it feels very organic when she comes out there and she does her speeches on the mic, and when she when she's doing her, when she's being the the heel that I know that she can be. But she delivers this promo. Get under the skin of the fans before we have the match in and of itself. And I will say that the commentating came off to me as a little better, a lot less puns. That was always one of the things that I remember with the commentating team last season, that it was always very pun heavy. If Fire's in the ring, you got to say something flame related and things like that. So I think they got away from some of that. It's like, she's on fire and watch her burn and stuff like that. It just came off. I was like, okay, we can have a normal match with normal commentary. It's not going to kill the gimmick of the show. So that felt good hearing that. Jesse works over the arm throughout most of the match. Again, man, Smothers, Jesse Jones in this case is a very solid wrestler, and I don't think you can expect anything less from her as a wrestler, her being second generation and whatnot. She works a very solid match, and it's very easy to tell what she is trying to do. I am working on the arm, I am damaging the arm, and I am going to destroy this to the point that you cannot take it anymore, which is what she did. She worked on Fire's arm, even though there was a flurry in there at some point in time. Jesse Jones ultimately wins with a submission through the armbar and forces Fire to tap out. Cannot expect anything bad here. You cannot walk into this match expecting, between the two of them, you cannot expect anything bad between Jesse Jones and Fire. They're both too good in the ring for that to occur. So you got what if you're looking at this, you got what you should have expected, is what I need to say. And they delivered. The next segment was a vignette, very well produced, very well done. Purpose of the vignette is to reintroduce a cast member or a roster member to the public. Last season, when she was introduced as Azteca. And it was a profile essentially showing her transition into Reina Reyes. I think I'm saying that, Reina Reyes. And she has now removed the mask and the headdress to become this new persona. Again, very, very well done. You can't go wrong with the production that they do with the WoW. Almost very cinematic. And I enjoyed that a lot of the people that you have now, they do come on without the, how can I put it, they're not trying to pass them off as, hey, this is who this person was, and she's a living, breathing cartoon character. You know what I mean? That, and I say that because I was going to say last year, but years ago is what I meant to say. In the original incarnation of WoW, they kind of did that. It's like these people just leapt off of a cartoon or out of the pages of a comic, and there is no history underneath them before that. But here they humanized Reyes a bit. I cannot pronounce her real name. I know she's a Filipino wrestler. She's another one who has a wrestling background. Shaw was a Jaleel. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that right. But if you go to her Twitter, you'll see what I'm talking about. Is that Gisele Shaw SHAW08? That is who she is, and you can see her outside of her WoW get up, because I'm a big proponent of the fact that I don't mind them grabbing wrestlers or people who want to be WoW girls and training them up for the task. But she, much like many of them, have begun their wrestling career outside of WoW, and I do think that needs to be addressed and pointed out from time to time, that there are a significant amount of young ladies who started their careers outside of that. In much the same way I would do with WWE or Impact Wrestling or Ring of Honor, NWA, so on and so forth. I think you have to show their background a little bit. And even though that in the transition from Azteca to Reina Reyes, they did not go into her personal background as, hey, I was Gisele Shaw. I'm taking a shot at the dark in that, and I apologize for butchering her name. But even though they don't go into that specific background, I like the fact that every once in a while they'll acknowledge it. Of course, you have podcasts like mine and reviews like mine that'll go a little bit further, but they do give some credit where credit is due, and I like that. Going into the next segment following that. Oh, and by the way, the mask and the headdress are removed, so Azteca as a character has been retired, and we got Reina. Okay, so segment 4 the history of women's tag team wrestling. Again, this was a very nice production. I appreciate this, especially considering I know that they had almost no access to footage. The WWE owns basically every piece of footage that they could have used to kind of illustrate this. I mean, now I'm sure there's some tape or film or some other promotion that may have some under, hidden in a vault somewhere or somebody's house or in the basement, who knows. But considering what they were trying to do as an editor, I can appreciate the effort that they put in. The only thing that I kind of disagreed with in here, and again, them doing the history of tag team wrestling here, I thought was very nice, very well done. I only agreed with that they somewhat allude to WOW being within the same lineage as some of the tag teams that they're talking about as they relate to the NWA and the WWE tag team champions. It's still not bad. I would have preferred a slightly different presentation because it is left open to interpretation. And if you're not aware of some of those things ahead of time, you could. I mean, let's say that you're a new fan and you have no idea who Princess Victoria is, and gosh, I can't remember her tag team partner right now. Well, I guess you better watch the segment, but because it's kind of new to me. But they talked about a lot of them. It'll come to me later. Princess Victoria. They talked about Lalani Kai and Judy Martin, her tag team partner, the Glamour Girls. I think Mae Young. They addressed in there. They talked about almost everybody under the sun that has ever been in, well, no, let me not say that. That's not true. They talked about the major names of women's wrestling who were in part of tag teams. And in doing that, they addressed, I think, Sue Green and Wendy Richter, and they just kind of went up the timeline. And Velvet McIntyre. That's what I was thinking about. Velvet McIntyre. And I should have known that because I remember her putting on one of the great performances, I think, at one of the first Survivor Series. And why she didn't win was just disappointing. But she was fantastic in that first Survivor Series match. Looked great. I mean, she's just a statuesque redhead. Great shape, all that good. She was super athletic. And how she managed to work in bare feet was just ridiculous. I'm still amazed by any wrestler that goes out and works barefoot. But in any case, nice presentation. As I stated, I do feel that without you walking into it, this is what I was going with. I know I got off track. I do feel like if you walk into it as a new viewer and you're not explained to that this is not all the same thing, that you could basically leave that video assuming that, oh, well, all of these had the same championship or something like that, which is not true. So it needs to be clarified that they are speaking of different incarnations of championship as it relates to tag team women's wrestling. Now, granted, some of those tag team championships did morph and then get bought out and things like that over the course of time, as in the World's Heavyweight Championship. So I get it. Some of those kind of went from one location to the next, and there was no really home base for it up until the WWE bought, the WWF at the time, bought it, and it became exclusive to them. But before that, they were in the NWA and elsewhere. The WWE got a hold of it, as I just said. The years that they talk about the Glamour Girls, part of that existed within the LPWA, which is the Ladies Professional Wrestling Association. Another one of the great women's organizations that was really 20 years ahead of its time. I need to do a full discussion on that because that organization does deserve it, but that's not here nor there. And then they kind of ended off, they kind of rolled that into Cage Heat. Cage Heat being the standard bearer for what tag team wrestling was in WoW. Although I think Cage Heat only really has, when you look at the scope of them, maybe 3 or 4 tag team defenses, period. And we're talking about from 2000 to 2016. So even though that they are the standard for them, and certainly don't want to take anything away from them, because Cage Heat at one point was a hallmark in both incarnations of WoW, both past and present. They don't have a lot of tag team history underneath them per se as relates to those titles, but you can't do a history of tag team wrestling segment in WoW and not include them. The editing was superb. Next segment, the Disciplinarian. One of my favorites, even though I'm not entirely familiar. I'm not going to say familiar with it. When I say one of my favorites, I'm talking about her indie incarnation, Robin Reed. She's really a wonderful woman. Had her on the show twice. Great to talk to, and just does a fantastic job of being a disciplinarian. She has thrown herself into this character, and the fact that she is a teacher, and it's no secret that she is a teacher in real life. It just makes it all the better. It is so entertaining for me to see her do her shtick. And she comes out with Samantha Smart, who is her manager in this program. And she is taking on the debuting Sassy Massey. I will start right there and say I am not a fan of that name. Sassy Massey is Alicia Edwards. Some people... I just bumped the microphone. Anyway, Sassy Massey is Alicia Edwards from Impact Wrestling, or some people would know her mostly from Impact Wrestling, but you certainly would know her as on the independent circuit and wife of Eddie Edwards. I try not to get on the names that are used inside of WoW, but I will. I have to go on record and say I do not like that Sassy Massey name. It sounds stupid. But it does not negate the talent that Alicia Edwards has underneath her. And that they're playing up a aspect of her character, and that in and of itself is fine, because it's what you're supposed to do. You take a little segment of who this person is, and you play it up for the big screen. The big screen. I'm talking like she's in the movie. You play it up for the show. She's a Boston native, so they are doing the Boston thing, and they're making her sassy. And I guess they wanted something that sounded kind of had a little rhyme to it, I assume. So that's how you got Sassy Massey. Same rules apply to this match as it did to set the Jesse Jones and Fire match. How can you have a bad match between these two? I can't see it. Between the two of them, we got 2 more names that have come off the independents, 2 names who have had incredible matches elsewhere. So when you see them on a large scale, on a nationwide product, they're already polished, they're ready to go, and they're delivering the goods. Massey wins the match with a sunset flip, what she turns into a sunset flip. So despite the physical mismatch, and you can see it, the Disciplinarian is physically larger. And I don't mean like big, I mean she's like taller and more domineering in terms of stature. But it was a roll-up. The match made sense. She pulled this win out of the blue despite the physical mismatch. Samantha Smart, I haven't seen a lot out of her, beyond, she does the typical manager stuff, like, hey, I got to interfere, I'm going to choke you out and yell at the fans and stuff like that. But I haven't really got the chance to see her cut a promo for her person, or do the interview for her, and all that good stuff. Be the manager that that you can be. Managers back in the day, I guess you have to add that into it now. Your job was pretty simple. It was interfere, hand stuff, do the talking for them, and take the embarrassment that your charge is not supposed to take. The manager took the pantsing so that their person didn't have to. The manager took the humiliation, and I'm sure that that's probably not something that they want to do. I'm just stating a historical kind of thing that the managers did. Jim Cornette took the cake in the face so that the Midnight Express didn't have to do it. Bobby Heenan had to get into the Weasel outfit so that his boys didn't have to do that. Jimmy Hart was the one that got his hair cut and water dumped on his head so his Honky Tonk Man didn't have to. So, Samantha Smart, we're talking about this, and this is the first episode. But I will apply this to every manager. I'm not saying that she has to be humiliated and whatnot, but one of the things that made the managers like that is that they got so much heat in their own way that you wanted to see them get their comeuppance. They weren't just, being part of the package was one thing, but seeing them get theirs in some way, shape, or form was another. Like the old, hey, if I win, I get 5 minutes along with the manager, that type of thing. So I say all of this to say that it would be nice to get to that point, and hopefully that does happen. We got several episodes. They got a full extension of the season. I think they're doing like 24 episodes this season. So hopefully it'll lead to that or something thereof eventually. We got tag team series starting up. Same rules apply with the match being covered really by a lot of talented people. So you can't really go wrong here. It starts with the Psycho Sisters, Razor, Fury, and Mesmera, who's I guess the third act being kind of tacked on to this. So we got a 3-person team. Time will tell whether they apply the Freebird rule or not. I don't know. And I guess they would have to be the tag team champions for that to really make sense, I guess, for the viewing public. Versus Princess Aussie and who we talked about earlier, Reina Reyes. I went into this match guessing who would go over, and just because of the way that it was set up. He had the Psycho Sisters come out, and they immediately get on the mic and they talk about how bad they are, this, that, and the other. And again, if you listen to this, you already watched it. So, spoiler, I went in guessing the Psycho Sisters were going over solely based on them doing that. Not that it ruined the match for me, but it did, in my view, give it away. I was like, okay, that pretty much waving a flag at me and who's winning this match. Again, what I was saying before is that the same rules apply to Jesse Jones and Fire and the Disciplinarian Sassy Massey. You got a match here that's pretty well covered by ladies who are all trained and know what they're doing. Princess Aussie wrestles outside of the Wildverse, as does her partner, who we talked about before, the Psycho Sisters, Razor and Fury, who were the participants in the match. Both wrestle, one as Sarah Wolf, the other as who we know as Harlow O'Hara. But the other who we know as Harlow O'Hara, we had her on the channel before. We've had both really as a wrestler and an interviewee. So it's been very entertaining to watch this match. And as I said, there was no real big surprise here. I was a little shocked, however, about them selling Cage Heat merchandise in the middle of the match, which Cage Heat made 0 appearances here, and by all accounts, I'm not even sure if they're going to make any appearances within the course of the season. Maybe that'll change. I don't know. The match was good. There is a little portion of this that I didn't necessarily agree with. One, it seems as if after the first off, the Psycho Sisters win. Surprise, surprise. But it looked as if here he was holding the tights. It wasn't even acknowledged in the commentary or in the replay, so I'm not sure where that was going. And also, no teams were revealed for the tournament. I mean, we know that there's a tag team tournament going on. We know that we're lining up for the the unveiling of who's going to be the next set of Wild Tag Team Champions. But no team within the course of this was released, or no brackets or anything like that was talked about. I mean, I suppose not releasing that would give you some sort of leeway if things don't go right or whatever the case may be. But I personally prefer knowing who it is. I mean, it's like looking at the NBA Finals, or the March Madness, or you're looking at the brackets for the Super Bowl. I do, even though I'm not a super sports guy, I enjoy a sports feel. I'll put it that way. So I would have liked to have seen them do something along those lines, and even if they just showed the teams on screen, if they didn't show the brackets, even if they just kind of went down and say, and the tag team tournament is on, and as you got a little voiceover, you got the teams kind of pop up on the screen, the different pairings, and who's going to win, folks, and blah blah blah. I would have enjoyed that a little bit, more as a kind of a full circle for the tag team thing, because like again, we talked about the history of tag team wrestling. We go into the first match, we only see the two, so in that regard, it felt a little incomplete to me. The match itself was enjoyable, but I would have liked a little bit more. Next segment was a video recap of the main event scene, where we're talking about all the competitors, the three of them that are going to be going into what is clearly explained as a triple threat elimination match, which by the nature of that match gets rid of disqualifications. Now I bring that up because of how the match ended. So let's go into it. It's the main event. Havoc, the Beast, Jungle Girl. The Beast, throughout the entirety of this show, is probably the only wild girl who was trained from the ground up as a wild girl. Even Jungle Girl. I know some people out there like, well, what about Jungle? Jungle Girl, Erica Porter, did wrestle outside of the Wildverse at some point in time. So she didn't keep it going for years like some might have hoped, or like even she hoped. She talked about it in the interviews that we had. But she did have some training outside of that. And I said it before, and I'll say it again. Jungle Girl looks phenomenal. She's a physical marvel, just in magnificent shape. So we got those three. And I like the fact that each of the three are able to put the other in jeopardy. As I said before, you see Beast. Beast is looks like a powerhouse. Havoc is just, she's tall and she's large. Not saying that as an insult, just, calling the obvious here. And Jungle Girl, again, physical marvel. So all of them just they look fantastic. And each looks as if they could put the next person in jeopardy somehow or another. Tessa Blanchard, of course, comes out and she sits ringside, and she's alongside with McLean and Dickie. Of course, here in this context, a three-person booth works, because you got the champion who is looking to scout their challenger or challengers. So the Beast, as I stated earlier, somewhat of an anti-hero. I think the fans enjoy her. Of course, they obviously enjoy Jungle Girl. The clear and obvious heel in this particular matchup was Havoc. One thing I didn't really care for here, and it was the narrative. And I love Jungle Girl, absolutely love her, but I don't like the narrative that they keep trying to apply to her. Like, and she was undefeated for 18 years. That's absurd. And I say it's absurd because here again, you're talking about a massive hiatus that is evident to anybody that has followed WoW. And by bringing up you had an 18-year undefeated streak, it only points out the fact that you had an hiatus. So, I mean, it would be like saying, I'm undefeated in boxing. Which is true. I am undefeated in boxing, but I haven't boxed. So it's the truth, but it's a truth with a twist on it. I don't necessarily like that. If it were me and if I were writing that, I would have said, the same thing. I wouldn't have tacked on a year to it. I think that's probably the best way that I could have presented that. Because Jungle Girl had been beaten in the first incarnation of WoW. She was defeated by Terry Gold in her first championship match. Following that, she never lost. And I would have gone with that. I said, Jungle Girl, ever since her first championship match, had never lost a match here at WoW. Period. I would have ended it with that. Trying to add on this idea that she hadn't been beaten in almost 20 years makes it absurd. Because she hadn't wrestled in that length of time. Granted, when she came back, she was fantastic. She looked amazing. She still delivers a great match. But again, to me, it's kind of like waving a red flag, and anybody that has a computer in front of them would turn around like, now wait a minute, how is she undefeated for 18 years? Well, because there was no wrestling there for 18 years. That's why. But it's not to say that she does not deserve the narrative of being a tough competitor or undefeated within the WoW verse. That much I agree with. I agree with that they should present her as the big. I'm just gonna go ahead. The big dog in the yard there. I'm gonna steal a Roman Reigns line. That's right, folks. I took a Roman Reigns line. That they should present her as that because Jungle Girl is the legacy. She is the legacy act within WoW. She's the legacy wrestler. And as far as I'm concerned, matter of fact, I would even go the extra mile and say that you can almost present her as the legend in the WoW. For that reason alone, I would give her another championship reign. And I'm getting off into, kind of fantasy booking here. But for that reason alone, I would give her another championship reign because she's the legacy of WoW. She should be presented as such. She should be presented as, hey, I've been doing this a long time, and I'm great at it. There's a reason that I'm here. There's a reason that I still perform at a high level because I deliver, and I perform beyond the means of a normal human being, which really she does. That would be my presentation. That would be my setup. I would just remove talking about the 18-year history of that because, to me, it's a bullseye and it points out what we know to be somewhat untrue. And instead, just talk about what we know to be true and omit the things that are false or comes off as wrong. You just do it in the reverse. That's all. In much the same way as you could say, and I'll use this as an example, some people will understand it. Chris Jericho ran around for years and still does, really, saying, hey, I was the first ever undisputed champion, and I beat The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin in the same night, which is absolutely true. He did. They just omit the fact that in both of those matches, he had to cheat to do it, or somebody cheated for him. So you just do it in reverse. That's all. Rather than bring up something that's, I know they say the 18 years as a means to try to elevate Jungle Girl, but just remove that, go in the opposite direction, and it works fine. So anyway, I wasn't a big fan of that. The match in itself, the show and matches top to bottom, perfectly fine. The finish, however, and I'm not doing the play-by-play for the matches here. The finish had Hazard, who you could clearly see is I'm not going to say related to, but associated with Havoc, coming to interfere in the match. So you got Havoc and Hazard. There you go, haha. And Hazard, who some people would know as Nevaeh. She comes in and causes the DQ. Now, that goes back to what I said earlier. I didn't understand that finish because a triple threat match, by the nature of the match, generally means that there is no DQ. Somebody has to win it. You can't really disqualify 1/3 of the match and then, take it away from the other two. So, in that, I didn't understand. I was like, the referee calls it and it's a no contest because Nevaeh interferes. Didn't make a lot of sense to me. I'll be honest. The finish of the match just kind of, I was lost there. I didn't care for it. So what we have there is Havoc's partner comes out and attacks Jungle Girl on the outside. Then the two of them go into the ring and then they attack the Beast. Now, in this setup, I understand where we're trying to go. And what becomes clear, by the end of the show where it's trying to go, because as Havoc and Hazard are attacking the Beast, Jungle Girl goes out, she grabs a chair, and she goes in and runs the team of Havoc and Hazard off. So now we've got the Beast and we've got Jungle Girl kind of having an uneasy moment in the ring where we're opponents and we're supposed to be at each other's throats, but yet and still you saved me. You saved me from harm's way. So what now? That was kind of what we're left with. We're like, well, what are we doing now as we run them off? So if I'm a betting man, I'm guessing that it is leading towards a union of sorts between Jungle Girl and the Beast. And remember, folks, I was not there at any tapings. I don't have any sort of inside track to this. I haven't talked to anybody. I haven't got any spoilers. And I would imagine that Havoc and Hazard are going to face off against that team at some point in time. The show also ended with Tessa Blanchard basically saying, "Oh, we don't have a number one contender. I'll find my own number one contender." So they're allowing Tessa to produce her own number one contender, which should be interesting. I'm sure that storyline wise, I would guess that she would just pick out the weakest person that she could find and here's my number one contender if they want to go the funny route. So I'm interested to see where that's going to go as well. I mean, I think as far as a hook for the episode is concerned, it did fine. So we're leaving there wanting to know what's going to happen with this new union between Jungle Girl and Beast. What's going to happen with the number one contendership for the world's title with Tessa Blanchard? Who is she going to pick for her opponent? I was about to say partner, but that's not correct. And again, I can't see this thing going and Havoc and Hazard not being in the tag team tournament. That it doesn't seem like that would be the thing to do to leave them out of it. You got a tag team there, and again, they haven't released any brackets or anything like that. Which again, it goes back to what I was just talking about. It's like it seems like they have this to give themselves leeway on what they want to do and what they can and what they who we can include and who we can't. We can switch and flop and do whatever we feel like it because there's no brackets here. You can't tell if this is an even number of teams or not. They'll just show up. So in any case, overall, the show is very enjoyable. easy to watch. It's an hour worth of television, and it's a very digestible hour. That is one thing that you can say about this show that you do not get, especially on Monday night. It is an easy 1 hour of wrestling that you can just, okay, let me sit down, let me watch this. All right, that was pretty cool. Whether you agree with everything on the show or not, just being able to do that is worth a wrestling show in and of itself. Opposed to that 3-hour marathon that you look at every Monday. I mean, I know why they do it, because the check's clear and the USA is paying for it. But yeah, that 1 hour, man, that is something to be said, just to be able to watch an hour worth of wrestling and just move on. So I hope that you enjoyed WoW like I did, despite the fact that I just disagreed with certain elements of it. But I want to hear your comments. Be sure to leave your comments about the show below. What did you think of it? If anybody knows how to properly pronounce Ray's name outside of WoW, please let me know, because I just couldn't get it out. I couldn't get my tongue to get the words out of my mouth. So if you know who she is, let me know in the comments below. What did you think of the show? Who do you think is probably earmarked for the tag team championships? I'm going to go and say the Psycho Sisters are going to the finals. I need to see who else is in it, but I think it's a shoo-in that the Psycho Sisters are going to go to the finals and at least compete for the tag team championships. And now, again, whether they become a Freebird type rule team having Mesmer, because she did not wrestle. She was just kind of there on the outside, and you're looking at her. Mesmer looks like she could be Fury's sister legitimately. You know, you put some contacts in Fury's eyes and have her stand next to Mesmer, they could probably look like they are related. So, and now that I'm saying that, is probably the whole point. So, anyhow, comments below, folks. Tell me what you thought of the show. Be sure to go and like and subscribe to this podcast wherever you may be finding it. Your support always helps keep the podcast going, helps me be able to produce more videos and matches for those of you that tune in for the matches. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel to watch those matches, please do that as well. Women's Pro Wrestling Network. You can just go in there and search that out. Hit the subscribe button and click the bell so that you are receiving these notifications on YouTube whenever new things go up. If you are listening to this on a podcast format, MP3, whether that be iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, amongst others, we are available where you find your greater podcasts. We're always available. All you got to do is just search out WPN. It's WPN, and we will pop up. I think it's the first and only thing that does utilize that. So if you just search out WPN, you'll be able to find our podcast. Be sure to subscribe there, leave your reviews and comments, particularly on iTunes. Leave your review there to get us up in the rankings. It always helps. And we'll leave a little shout out for you if you notify me that you have done so. If you give me a little buzz or drop a comment or something like that and let me know that you're there, I'll be sure to shout that out in the program. Also, if you have comments or questions, as we are going to open that up for you guys as we continue to interview more young ladies of the wrestling world, or the wrestling universe. Probably grab a couple of these wild girls, as you know, now that I'm talking about them. And then if you're listening to that, who would you like to hear me get an interview with? Who in the WoW roster would you like me to grab a hold of and try to get some words with? Would you like to get me Sarah the Rebel, who was just talking about the Psycho Sisters, who we now know as Razor? Would you like me to try to get Princess Aussie or Ray Reyes or Fire or Jessie Bell Joe, or excuse me, I'm merging names now. Jessie Bell Smulders, aka Jesse Jones. Let me know in the comments below, or contact me directly at Mr. Green 75 at hotmail.com. You can leave me your questions that I'll address on air, or you can make your suggestions directly there, or you can contact me directly via Facebook at Women's Pro Wrestling Network. Drop a message there. I'm always reading those, which I get several of them, so you just be patient. I have to read through some of those DMs through the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. So that's going to do it, folks. Make sure, comment, like, subscribe, leave your personal review down below, and we'll talk about that on the next podcast. So until then, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying we will see you on the next go-round.